Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. My Karen ex demands I pay child support for a kid that's not even mine. My sister is on her side. After that, am I the jerk for sending my son to school with less food and explicitly telling him not to share with his best friend? And after that, you need to see my father in person? Zavara, the great mystic of the beyond, shall grant your request. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get to trick anyone into paying child support for a kid that's not theirs. Just you wait till I take you on Mari, Reddit boy. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. My Karen ex demands I pay child support for a kid that's not even mine. My sister is on her side. Some years ago, I dated a girl. The relationship was bad. She was very controlling and she mistreated me. It ended up really bad and we broke up. I kept going on with my life, and after some years, I got a decent job, enough to solve all of my needs, have a comfortable life, and make some savings. The thing is, a couple of months after getting my job, my ex contacted me. She first asked me to talk, and I believed that she may want to reconnect or something, but she showed up with a 5-year-old, claiming that he was my son and demanding that I pay child support. I didn't believe her, but the kid's age matched the time that we cut contact. I got advice from a lawyer, a friend of mine, to try to solve this out of court. I offered to take responsibility, pay all of the costs, and be an active part of the kid's life, only after taking a DNA test. Everyone was okay with this, except for my ex. She acted offended and demanded to just give her the money that she deserved. She used all the excuses she could. She even contacted my family and told them I was trying to avoid taking responsibility of my kid. When she ran out of excuses and the DNA test was finally done, surprise, surprise, I'm not the father. She was so mad with the result and she cried about the money, saying it was unfair and she deserved it, but she didn't accomplish anything. Moving on to the last week, there was a little party at my parents' house. My brother, a friend, and I were talking, and my brother started to joke about the situation with my ex. My friend and I started to joke about it too. Some of our comments were a little dark and bad, but we were far away from the rest of the people. Literally, we were on the opposite side of the house, and nobody else could hear us. At least that's what we thought. We were laughing like crazies when my sister appeared very angry and she pushed me against the wall. She spied on us and heard our conversation, and she was really mad. She started to yell at us about how horrible people we were for making fun of a poor woman. A few hours later, when the party ended, she asked me to go to the kitchen with our parents, and she started to say how awful I was for the previous situation. Apparently, my ex had been in contact with her, and she believed her version, and that was her way to have an intervention. My brother and I were like, "Are you serious?" when she started to say how I forced my ex into being a single mother, and that I have the moral obligation to help her. My dad only said that maybe we were being too cruel making jokes about her, but that I wasn't responsible for her kid. My mom then surprised all of us when she said, "Even if the kid is not yours, you are making more than enough money to support that kid. You should have helped her." Since then, I've been receiving texts. My dad and my brother are on my side, saying I'm not responsible for the kid, but my sister is telling me how horrible I am for ruining their lives. My mom only said, "It's your decision and I respect it. I'm just very disappointed that you ended up being so selfish." I'm aware that she doesn't deserve my money, and I'm not planning to give her any, but the constant harassment of my sister trying to guilt me, it's just exhausting. Tell your sister if she's so concerned, she should give your ex money, since she has as much to do with conceiving that baby as you did. It's not just that, but she also clearly cheated on him while they were together. And then she tried to scam him into claiming that the child was his, so she doesn't deserve a penny from him. You're the jerk. I know this opinion won't be popular, but hear me out. You're obviously a dude, and you made it clear that you make a lot of money. Big surprise there with the pay gap and whatnot. Guys can basically walk into anywhere and get hired on the spot. With that in mind, this is your ex. She at some point meant something to you. Now she's asking you for help, and you refuse to help, even though you can't afford to. You're no better than Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. Men with too much money and no desire to help others are not making the world a better place. Your sister is right that you are heartless. This is why I never agreed to paternity tests. I live a good life and have multiple sources of income through child support through multiple men and my unemployment due to my social anxiety. Is there a chance some of these men might not be the fathers? Sure, but at the end of the day, they are manning up and helping provide for kids who need them. I can't wait for paternity tests to be outlawed. You mess around, you will find out. You want the reward of what we can offer, but refuse to support us when we need help. This is why I don't feel bad about the $60K a year I bring in off guys like you. Somebody's got some issues. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his ex? Please let us know. I think that last commenter is the biggest jerk of them all, but that ex is a close second. Why not go after the real baby daddy for child support? Am I the jerk for sending my son to school with less food and explicitly telling him not to share with his best friend? This situation began a year ago, and it blew up in our faces last week. My son, Gregory, is 13 years old. He just began the 8th grade. His friend, Peter, is also 13, and he began the 8th grade also. Gregory and Peter have been friends since elementary school. Last year, I noticed that Gregory would be ravenously hungry after school every single day. He would come home and eat a frozen dinner or something, and then help himself to seconds at dinner time. I chalked this up to him being a growing boy, and I let it go. Something about this situation was nagging at me though, and while Gregory wasn't clear about why at first, he eventually came clean. Peter was being sent to school every day with no lunch. It looks to me like a typical case of neglect and unfit parents. The one time that Gregory went to their house, he came home with comments about it smelling really bad, and Peter's parents locking themselves in the garage for hours. Feeling bad for Peter, I decided to discreetly begin giving Gregory more food each day, just about doubling all of his food. Over time, I became less discreet and began packing a separate lunch for Peter. I was never thanked for this by anyone, but I knew Peter was eating the food that I sent. This year, things are different. Money is tighter for personal reasons, and frankly, with how expensive things are, I've decided not to spend exorbitant amounts of money supporting someone else's kid. I set Gregory down and told him that I would be packing him one lunch, which is for him and him alone. I made it extremely clear. Do not share with anyone, and this includes Peter. Gregory followed my instruction until one day last week I got a phone call from Peter's mother. She was livid that I had cut Peter off without a single word. I asked her when it became my responsibility to feed her son, and she responded that if she had known I wasn't sending Gregory to school with too much food, she would have handled it herself. I asked if she remembered why I began sending him to school with 2 lunches in the first place, and she hung up on me. I feel conflicted. I know I'm having my kindness thrown back in my face, but did I approach this situation incorrectly? I'm thinking you are about 50-50 here. It's understandable that you can't take on the burden of feeding Peter, but you didn't mention that you contacted anyone at the school and made them aware of the situation. They have people who deal with this type of stuff. That's the part of you that is the jerk. I was thinking you're the jerk for not having reported this to the authorities already, but the school administration would be a good plan too. Especially when OP's son said that the friend's parents locked themselves in the garage for hours. This is backwards. Where's the blame on Peter's actual mom or the school counselors? How is this somehow only OP's problem? This sub is a mess, blaming OP when she's the only one who stepped up. No good deed goes unrewarded. I hate to say you're the jerk in this situation, but you are. Not for how you handled the mother, but because as far as Peter himself knows, you did cut him off without a word. He's the only one who suffered here. And while you're correct that it's not technically your responsibility and your family absolutely needs to come first in terms of tighter finances for any reason, yes, you did handle this incorrectly. Everyone sucks here except the kids. Kids going hungry is everyone's business, and he was relying on you. You make no mention of trying to contact anyone about this or trying to find another solution. You just cut off his access to food. If you can't afford it or don't want to feed this kid, that's your prerogative. But then you need to reach out to those who can. You talk to the school district, you talk to the PTA, you talk to whoever you need to. You don't just turn a blind eye to a kid going hungry and say, "Not my kid, not my problem." For all you know, that lunch was the only meal he was getting every day. Why didn't you reach out to his parents ever? This is your son's best friend, and it sounds like you don't know them or have any idea what their home life is like at all. Why didn't you reach out to the school to see what low-income support they might have to make sure that this kid didn't go hungry? I'm really disheartened to see how many people here have said not the jerk and that it isn't your problem. You haven't made any effort to see if this kid is neglected or if the family is just extremely poor. You're not the jerk for not being able to afford to feed a kid that's not yours, but you are the jerk for washing your hands of the situation completely and making your kid cruelly withhold food from his best friend. Well, what do you think? Is Opie a jerk for how they handled this or not? Please let us know. No good deed goes unpunished. Always remember that. You need to see my father in person? Zavara, the great mystic of the beyond, shall grant your request. My father passed 20 years ago and left me a tiny cabin house. He loved that place, built it himself, and tended to it religiously. After he passed, I couldn't find it in my heart to visit because every rock on the wall, every flower reminded me of him. My mother never cared for it, even when my dad was alive, so within a few months, I realized that it would be a while before either of us would be ready to spend time there again. As such, we called up the electricity, telephone, and water companies to shut off services to the cabin until further notice. While other companies complied without an issue, the water company decided this request could only be made by the person whose name was on the bill. Mind you, their fee, due to zoning and a well on our property, was less than €2 per month. Repeatedly faxing the death certificate as well as next of kin transfer of the title got us nowhere. Dozens of calls per month, several emails, in-person applications, smoke signals, interpretive dances, telepathy, etc. Nothing made any difference. Both me and my mother were entirely flabbergasted, so we asked around and found out that indeed the process was unsolvable, and albeit not technically legal, people stopped paying those fees and the water would get shut off anyway as a result. Getting any lawyers involved would not be worth the money, so we did just that, discontinued the connected bank account and never gave it another thought. 2 weeks ago, while at my family house, I got a call from the water company. They were closing inactive accounts at the 20-year mark, and my father's cabin was up. They did, however, tell me that 1. There was a pending sum of $11.93 to be paid for closing the account, and 2. The account owner themselves had to make the application to close the account. Once again, I mentioned the whole, "You know he's dead," and was passed over to a supervisor. But in a reminiscing demonstration of absolute absent-mindedness and stupidity, the response I got was, "Unfortunately, they have to show up in person, as we need a paper copy for accounts older than this many years. Otherwise, we can't proceed." Now, I don't know how widely common this is, but in my country, you rent the burial site in 3 to 5 year increments. My father's grave's 20 years were up in August, and my mother decided it was time to unearth his bones and surrender the site. As such, we had just been delivered a very respectful package with my father's remains, cleaned and curated only that week. Everyone that has ever gone through this process would recognize that box for what it was, and what it was great timing. 2 days later, I went to the water company's local office. I wore my most purple, silky goth outfit, dark makeup, and oh-so-heathen jewelry, and carried a large bag with me. I asked to speak to the same supervisor, who luckily for me was in an open space area with their team's director and quite a few more desks. After confirming with her why I was there, she started telling me the whole "he needs to be here in person" thing again. But I interrupted and told her, "I knew what you would say, so I brought him with me so he can tell you himself." I plopped a Ouija board on the box with my father's remains on the desk and loudly shushed the area. Heads turned. Her director looked up with a "what?" expression, and the supervisor herself was frozen and wide-eyed. I placed my hands on the Ouija board and just started loudly asking my father's spirit to communicate with me, showing me a sign he was there with us, reach out to me from the grave. Everyone was silent. People walking by the door stopped and stared. I threw a few "Papa, can you hear me?" in there as well for dramatic effect. In comedic timing that happens only once in a lifetime, I think a pen or something small fell down from someone's desk behind me, which against the silence was quite startling. Excitedly, I moved my hand to yes and proclaimed I needed his help in the form of his signature from the beyond in order to close the account. Finally, the director snapped out of it and came over with an "All right, I can help you over here. I think this is enough." But no, it wasn't. I started gathering my things as I laid into him. How asking to speak in person with an indisputably dead man of over 20 years was beyond stupid, and if I had to put up with their idiocy, they had to put up with the process required to get a hold of him. I also mentioned that denying someone's legal title claim was lawsuit-worthy, so he immediately changed his tune that I could, of course, close the account. He tried to bring up the fee, but I cut him off with a "don't even think about it," and I walked out. It's still early, but so far, there has been radio silence. My mother thanked me for handling it, But when I suggested she should write to someone higher up about this, she just said, not worth it. It's over now. What a missed opportunity for a water under the bridge comment. Am I the jerk for telling my ex-best friend that he caused his own divorce? I, 25 female, recently got into an argument with my now ex-best friend, let's just call him Ben, 30 male, who ended up divorced after he messed up his marriage and I didn't support him as a friend should. Basically, he made his wife, let's call her Gwen, 27 female, who I'm also friends with, go into an open relationship with him. I warned Ben that this wasn't going to end the way he wanted it to. I had to comfort her about this because I'll be honest, I love her, but she tends to let people walk all over her. I helped her through it and convinced her to just take advantage of the situation because she was going to find someone better, and my idiot best friend would try and close it the moment she realized her worth to trust me. He just wanted to cheat. Well, 6 months later, Ben comes complaining that his wife won't close the relationship and has been seeing this guy Martin for 4 months, and how he stopped seeing other women and has tried to give her more attention so she'll dump Martin, but she won't, and asked me if I could talk some sense into her so that he could close their relationship. I just deadpanned looked at him and said he was an idiot who wanted his cake and to eat it too, and now he had to face the consequences of his actions, and I warned him that this would happen. He called me a jerk and he left. Well, it's been 3 months and Gwen filed for divorce. They don't have kids and they had a prenup, so it went easy. Ben was complaining to me again, and I told him he now has what he wanted, the freedom to mess around. He got mad at me for rubbing the divorce in his face and told me not to contact him and that all of us women are alike. I myself don't see myself as the jerk, but some of our friends are saying I shouldn't be rubbing it in his face and being so smug about it. So, am I the jerk for telling him the truth about how this was going to end? I believe that Ben has experienced the literal definition of mess around and find out. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. You warned him and he didn't listen. Open relationships can work if you're doing it for the right reasons. Ben just wanted to hook up with whoever he wanted, but then instantly changed his mind when she started doing the same thing. Ben has no reason to be mad here. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Ben? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for making my wife cry on her birthday? Last night I was playing with a band at our local bar. My wife came in and immediately latched onto a band member's wife in the corner of the bar and spent 2+ hours not leaving the area. She's maybe met the band member's wife one time. Maybe 20 feet away was a group of our friends. She says they are my friends and her acquaintances. She would not leave the corner of the bar and waved hello to them. It was not a crowded bar. During a break, I asked her if she would go and say hello to our friends. She told me that she waved. I again said it would be great if you said hello to them, considering they came out to support the band. A little backstory. These same friends invited us to their house 2 weeks ago, and we spent hours at their house hanging out. After the gig, I guess I was visibly annoyed, but I didn't want to say anything because our birthday is today. When we got home, she pressed me on it, and I told her I felt it was pretty rude to not have the courtesy to say hello to our friends. She challenged me, saying why does she have to go and say hi instead of them coming up to her? Well, they were already there sitting at a table, and it was a group of people. It made me very uncomfortable how cold it felt that she couldn't take 1 minute to go and say hello, and seemingly hid in the corner on purpose with someone who is a relative stranger. Now it's her birthday, and she's crying, saying I was very rude. I don't believe I was rude at all, and just told her on her request how I was feeling. I'm ready for your judgment. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. She waved and was hanging out with someone she considered her friend. This was also her birthday, and it was nice of her to spend that time supporting you. This is the case of making a big deal out of nothing. Just let it go. It would make me so nervous to have my social interactions monitored and policed like this. OP, are you always watching her this closely? It's super weird. Even the language is weird. His wife latched on and hid, etc. Creepy and controlling, OP. You're the jerk. Even if she hid, that's her option. It sounds like he expects her to act as a promoter to the band, be the social director to the fans, and encourage people to come watch them with her as an attraction. He sounds like a grade A user. She spends her birthday coming out to watch your band, and you get upset with her for not interacting with certain people exactly like you want her to? Yeah, you're the jerk. If you're even going to have this stupid conversation, maybe ask why she preferred your band member's wife's company over theirs. or why she views them as more your friends than hers. You're the jerk. Old musician chiming in. Your wife is not a member of the band. It's not her responsibility to come to your gigs. It's not her responsibility to go thank other people for coming to your gigs. If you want to thank someone for coming, you go thank them yourself. Because if you want your wife to be your PR person and glad hand everyone in the bar, then you need to start giving her an equal cut of the gig money and tips. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. She came out to your gig. She waved at them. She hung out with someone she liked. Stop overthinking this, bruh. Just let it go. Am I the jerk for moving my money to a different account after my stepmother threatened me with taking it from me? I'm 15, female. Stepmother and I obviously don't get along. She's been my stepmother for 1.5 years now. The money that I have was in a joint account, me and my dad, but stepmother had access to the debit card and PIN number. I earned this money myself by selling handcrafted items. I broke curfew a few days ago, and she suggested that she's considering whether to take 20% of my money out of the account as a fine for punishment, and every time this happens, she will take 20% more until nothing is left. I was very upset about her threat and decided that I should move my money before she takes it away. I logged in online and I transferred all of it to my big brother's account that night, and the next day we went to open a joint bank account with my brother and we moved the money there. So she doesn't have access to it anymore. So upon learning what happened, my dad and stepmom are furious at me and at my brother. Stepmom is focused on the fact that I've taken away her means of punishment, and my dad is upset that I didn't trust him enough to protect my money. He insists he wouldn't have allowed her to do this. Stepmom has banned me from seeing my brother. It's meaningless. I don't accept her authority to do this. And my dad said he's hurt that I didn't trust him, and as a result, he doesn't trust me either. Am I the jerk for moving my money? Honestly, I completely agree with your actions here. Your stepmother threatened to steal your money from you, so you moved to protect it first. As to why you didn't trust your dad, well, why did she have access to the debit card and PIN for an account that wasn't hers? Not the jerk. This is so important. Your dad broke your trust first by giving your stepmother access to the debit card and PIN. Entitled woman tries and fails to take my job. So I'm an instructor at a small college. I teach artsy vocational classes and only have an MFA, and my school really favors more academic PhDs. This was all told to me when I was hired, but the dean at the time was incredibly kind about this and gave me a secret boost in pay to make up for the lack of favor. She told me that even though I would never be promoted, my area of expertise was valued, and as long as I stayed in my lane, I was very welcome. So before I ever got tenure, I worked for a few years and developed a slate of very popular classes that filled every semester. I was very happy and grateful to have the job. Titles mean nothing to me, and I was just happy to be successful at a job I loved that helped people. I also learned very quickly never to step on the toes of more senior faculty. I stayed in my lane. Then, a woman was hired in another subgroup of my department. I never met her, nor was I involved in her hiring. She had nothing to do with me, but she does have a PhD. Then, before I ever met her, I saw on her social media that she announced she would soon be teaching all my classes, and she was delighted to be doing that. I was shocked because I went through a rigorous hiring process, and I am exceptionally qualified to teach in my area. She has no publications in my area, and her degrees are only vaguely related to my area. I figured my chair would put her in her place, but I was wrong. Instead, I was called into the chair's office and told, "Entitled woman is very interested in what you do and wants to help you." I stared my chair down. Karen has a degree in X and she was hired to do Y. That doesn't have anything to do with me. Chair sighs. Her degree is multidisciplinary and she is more than qualified. This shocked me because it was way out of protocol. There was a pecking order, one that I had followed. I also realized very quickly that if I gave in, I would have no job. I would be shunted off to teach stuff I wasn't qualified to teach. This gave me the courage to resist. And resist I did. Multiple meetings with my chair followed, in which I was painted as difficult and unsupportive. Honestly, if this woman had one shred of business teaching in my area, I probably would have succumbed to the pressure. But she was not qualified either by degree, experience, or publications. That made me mad. Meanwhile, an older colleague, who had been terrible to me and made me cry a few times, pulled me aside one day. Apparently, she had grown to respect that I wasn't letting the chair bully me. She told me to never verbalize permission for entitled women to take over any of my classes. Apparently, the rules of the school were, and are, that I was the one who decided who could sub for me or take over for me. So I held firm. I was bullied over and over again. One time, my chair very nearly physically threatened me and said, "Why can't you just say it?" Chair had no idea I had been tipped off why I needed to say it. I was told by another colleague that entitled woman is bored with her area and doesn't like what she got a degree in, and she only did that area because it's easier to get hired. I said her life choices weren't my problem, and I stood firm. My chair threatened not to support my tenure, but I actually had a bulletproof application. Chair couldn't do anything. Shunned by many colleagues, some of whom I thought were my friends, I was called angry and unreasonable on a good day and a jerk on the worst. One day, the sweet, dear lady who had been responsible for hiring entitled woman actually cried an apology, saying she was sickened by what was happening to me. Entitled woman had been their last choice and the only person that they could get. This sweet, lovely woman wailed that entitled woman was obnoxious and terrible. She also said that many people in the department supported me but were scared of the chair. She said I should just keep resisting. At least twice, I was at school events, and when I told the person, both times high-up administrators, what I did or taught, they said, "Oh, I thought entitled woman did that." I had to correct them. So I got tenure and I stood firm. Meanwhile, a former student who was now teaching at a community college nearby told me entitled woman was teaching there. He provided me with her bio from their website. Her listed credentials were my credentials. Luckily, that didn't last long. She didn't have the expertise, so I guess the gig just fizzled. One thing I never did was meet with entitled woman. I was asked to so we could hash things out, and I said repeatedly that there was nothing to hash. I was happy in my job, and my job wasn't her job. I was always polite and professional if I had to deal with her, but I always avoided any potential traps. They wanted my verbal permission. I would not give it. Finally, the chair stepped down. The next chair initially sided with the majority because he didn't know me very well, but then he got to know me and he was fair. Eventually, entitled woman stopped trying to do my job. She pushed her way into another area, and now she steers clear of mine. It really did take about 10 years to wear her down. So there was no real dramatic ending. I just held firm, and eventually she gave up. The reason I'm sharing is recently another colleague told me that he always thought entitled woman and chair were having an affair, and this is why everything happened. Maybe I'm naive, but the thought never even crossed my mind. Plus, entitled woman is actually not attractive at all, so I couldn't picture it. Anyways, over the years, whenever entitled woman has done anything terrible or stupid, my colleagues will always share it with me. Still, I actually have little ill will left for her. I won most of the battles and the war, and that's good enough. I still love my job and my students, and I'm glad I fought for it. They say academia is like Game of Thrones without the violence. Fair, I think. Guy unloads his cart on a closed lane and is confused I'm not helping him. This happened just earlier today. I work multiple jobs, and on my free time from my main job, I deliver for Shipt. Now, Shipt has a uniform for their drivers, but they don't require us to wear them. So note, I'm wearing my rainbow striped tank top, blue jean shorts, and flip-flops. I just finished shopping for a customer at Target and had just processed the order. Target is nice enough to have a stand with lots of bags for Shipt drivers to bag their ordered groceries. In this particular Target, it was a closed register lane. As I'm bagging my order, in a lane with a sign on the conveyor belt that says closed, a guy starts to unload his cart onto the unmoving belt. I look to him with confusion, and he's giving me the same look. I'm wondering why he placed his stuff on a clearly closed belt, and he's wondering why I'm not scanning his stuff. I mean, I get it. I clearly looked like a Target employee with my red shirt, rainbow striped, nice long brown pants, blue jean shorts, and closed-toe work shoes, flip-flops. He then speaks up saying, "Aren't you gonna scan my stuff?" I, confused, say, "Dude, this register is closed and I don't work here." I can see the gears turning in his head as he finally notices the closed sign and my clearly not Target outfit. He says nothing as he reloads his cart and goes to an actually open register. I chuckled as I left the store. I mean, I get it. On autopilot, you see a person's presence behind a register and assume that you can go there without actually looking at the details of your surroundings. It was still pretty funny. I'm technically on the clock, just not for here. Had a run-in with a Karen before lockdown that thought I was an employee of a sandwich shop while I was waiting in line. For context, I worked going door to door for a utility company at the time with a team of 5. We all dress the same in black with our company logos, and in bad weather, we have very warm matching raincoats also with the logo. We also have badges with our names on them and the company's info, so people know we aren't random grifters. On this particular day in my area, there was a downpour so bad that it was one of only 2 times in 4 years that our leadership decided to pull us out of the field. As this is rare, we don't really have a protocol in place, and we get told to hunker down nearby with the company van to see if it gets better before they send us home for the day or back out. Due to this, we decide to check out a small sandwich shop one of the guys swears is the best in the area. All of us being wet and hungry thinks that this sounds great, and we head right on over to get some food while still on the clock and getting paid till we hear back. Place is small, but it looks decent. Also part convenience store. They don't have a counter you order at, but an employee that walks around and takes orders, and with someone already talking to him, I know it's going to be a minute until all 5 of us get our orders in, so I elect to go last and check around the store as I'm in no hurry. After looking around, I see my coworkers have all their orders in, so I go up to do mine. Due to this, my order is done last and has a bit of a delay. My 4 coworkers are all sitting down and starting to eat at this point, while I wait for my sandwich, when an older lady walks up to me and starts saying a sandwich order without as much as a hello. I cut her off to say, "Oh, I don't work here," to which I get the confusing reply, "So, you're working? You just don't work here?" "Uh-huh, sure." And an eye roll followed by her starting her order again. I respond by simply putting my hand up to cut her off, point to the logo on my jacket, which is still soaked by the way, and ask, "Does this look like the name of the store to you?" I don't remember if she said anything back, but my order got announced at this point, so I stepped away, grabbed my sandwich, and smiled at her as I walked by her again to sit with the 4 people dressed identically to me that were already eating and dig in. Now you'd think that this would be the end of it, with me just eating my sandwich while basking in Karen's indignation, but no. She stomped off and finds the proper person to speak with, drags him back into view, and starts complaining about me to him, while he desperately tries to explain that I don't work there. By the time we finished eating and were leaving, I still don't think she had placed an order. Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.